Commander Ryland Hayes groaned as his senses slowly returned, his head pounding from what felt like the worst hangover in the universe. The air was too clean, sterile in a way that unsettled him. He blinked against the bright, artificial light. Ugh, did I crash into a high-tech dentist's office? A smooth, almost musical voice responded, startling him. You are aboard the Zenith Ascendant, a vessel of the Varelian Collective. Ryland squinted, his vision clearing just enough to register the figure surrounding him. Tall, willowy beings with luminous skin that shimmered like shifting liquid metal. Their oversized, pupilless eyes locked onto him with unnerving intensity, and, to his immediate discomfort, none of them were wearing a single scrap of clothing. He immediately clapped his hands over his eyes. Whoa. Okay, listen, I respect different cultures, but this is a bit more exposure than I'm used to. One of the beings tilted their head, their expression unreadable. Is your visual input impaired? No, but my modesty is under attack, Ryland muttered. What happened to, I don't know, clothes? A faint hum passed through the group. Laughter? Amusement? He wasn't sure. The same being stepped forward, their tone neutral. We do not require such coverings. Our bioadaptive exoskins provide all necessary protection and regulation. Ryland cautiously peeked through his fingers, still keeping his gaze strategically above their shoulders. So, you're technically wearing advanced body armor, just the invisible kind. Correct. Primitive fabric is inefficient and restrictive. Only now did Ryland notice his own situation. His familiar flight suit was gone, replaced by a thin, metallic sheen covering his body like liquid metal. His eyes widened. What did you do to me? Did you strip me and paint me in space chrome? The exoskin is a hygiene measure, the alien explained, their tone maddeningly calm. Your prior garments were biologically contaminated. Contaminated? Ryland scoffed. That flight suit survived 3 planetary invasions and a supernova. Its history. It was also odorous, the alien added with the slightest wrinkle of their nose. Ryland sighed. Great. Kidnapped by shiny nudists and given an involuntary wardrobe change. That's a new one. The alien ignored his sarcasm and extended a slender, silvered hand. I am Overseer Kalen. You were retrieved after your ship emitted a distress signal moments before its destruction. Ryland groaned, running a hand down his face. Wonderful. So I'm stranded, unarmed, and practically naked on a ship full of glowing aliens. What's next? Do I get probed? Kalen blinked slowly. Your arrival is timely. Our vessel is experiencing a critical systems failure. We require your expertise. Ryland crossed his arms. Ah, so that's why I'm still breathing. You need a mechanic. Kalen nodded. In exchange, we will ensure your safe return to your people. Ryland sighed dramatically. Fine, but just so you know, if I have to stare at any more shiny butts, I'm billing extra. Another ripple of confusion passed through the aliens, but Kalen merely turned. Follow me. Ryland trudged after them, muttering about cultural misunderstandings. As he passed a polished metal panel, he caught his reflection. The exoskin shimmered faintly over his body, shifting like liquid silver. He frowned, flexing his fingers. Ha! I look like a walking trophy. Fancy. Behind him, one of the crew whispered to another, Do humans always speak to themselves? Ryland shot them a glance. Only when they're having an existential crisis. Now, show me this disaster of yours. The engineering bay was massive, filled with pulsing conduits, glowing circuits, and floating holographic displays. Ryland whistled low. Okay, this is a step up from zip ties and duct tape. Kalen gestured toward a large, flickering console. Our primary energy core is destabilizing. We require immediate assistance. Ryland approached the screen, frowning at the unintelligible symbols flashing across it. Yeah, this is just a fancy light show to me. Got a translation mode. Or am I pressing buttons and hoping for the best? A nearby technician scoffed. If you lack the knowledge. Relax, Glowstick, Rylan cut in, rolling up his non-existent sleeves. I'm a quick study. He scanned the interface, biting his lip. While the script was alien, the layout had some familiar patterns. He started pressing controls experimentally. The technician inhaled sharply. Careful, that panel regulates the reactor's containment field. Rylan smirked. Good thing I didn't hit the giant red button, huh? Kalen's gaze was steady. Your confidence is unsettling. Confidence is just ignoring the odds and hoping for the best, Rylan quipped, pulling a small tool from a hidden compartment in his exoskin. Now, let's see what's actually wrong here. He crouched beneath the console, prying open a panel. Inside was a tangled mess of sparking conduits and fried components. Rylan groaned. Oh yeah, there's your problem. Your power couplings are burnt to hell. Who designed this junk? The technician bristled. This is advanced Varelian technology. Rylan snorted. Yeah? Well, it looks like someone wired it with chewing gum and a prayer. Kalen tilted their head. Chewing gum? Never mind. Point is, I've seen backwar freighters with better wiring. Lucky for you, improvisation is my specialty. He dug through his toolkit, pulling out a length of flexible wire and a small metal clamp. This should bypass the damage long enough to stabilize your core. The technician hesitated. That method is unconventional. Unconventional is just another word for genius, Rylan said with a grin, attaching the wire. The console immediately lit up with a steady green glow. Kalen raised a brow. The energy field is stabilizing. Rylan dusted off his hands. And that's how you turn an interstellar disaster into a coffee break. The alien technician gawked at the display, their luminous eyes widening in disbelief. It's functioning. How did you? Human resourcefulness, Rylan said, flashing a cocky grin. We're unpredictable like that. Kalen studied him for a moment, something between curiosity and reluctant admiration flickering in their gaze. You are more capable than anticipated. Rylan leaned against the console, arms crossed. Flattery will get you everywhere, Overseer. Before Kalen could respond, a deep, warbling alarm echoed through the ship. The overhead lights dimmed to an ominous crimson. The technician checked another console, their expression turning grim. They've found us. The Sentinels will breach our perimeter within minutes. Rylan straightened, his smirk fading. Guess that means the coffee break's over. What's the plan? Kalen motioned toward the exit. We must prepare for confrontation. Your skills will be required again. Following closely, Rylan muttered. Didn't wake up expecting to play intergalactic hero today. Hope you guys have a good insurance policy. The group moved swiftly through the sleek corridors, the ship's smooth metallic walls pulsing with rhythmic energy patterns. They reached a chamber lined with weapons, and a silent crew member handed Rylan an unfamiliar firearm. The barrel shimmered with a faint blue glow. He turned it over in his hands, nodding in appreciation. Sleek. Now, which end do I point at the bad guys? The technician barely spared him a glance. It is self-guiding. Even you cannot mishandle it. Gee, love the confidence boost, Rylan muttered. Kalen's tone sharpened. Focus. The Sentinels will not hesitate to destroy us. Rylan rolled his shoulders, testing the weight of the weapon. Slowly, a grin crept back onto his face. Good. I don't plan on hesitating either. The ship's alarm continued its steady, urgent wail as Rylan jogged beside Kalen. His boots clanked against the metal flooring, while the alien crew glided effortlessly, their steps eerily silent. So these Sentinels, Rylan asked, keeping pace. What's their deal? Are we talking clunky metal goons or high-end nightmare fuel? Kalen's tone remained level. Both. They were created as automated terraforming drones, but evolved beyond their programming. They now seek to absorb and repurpose all advanced technology. Rylan whistled low. And here I thought my landlord was bad. Kalen cast him a sidelong glance. Your ability to joke in life-threatening situations is unusual. Unusual is kind of my thing, Rylan said, gripping his weapon tighter. As they entered the central command hub, chaos surrounded them. Holographic displays flickered. Crew members barked commands in their fluid, alien language, and emergency lights cast eerie shadows against the walls. Ryland's gaze drifted to a massive viewport overlooking deep space. Beyond it, the enemy fleet emerged, sleek, jagged ships, their black hulls gleaming under distant starlight. Ominous red energy signatures pulse along their surfaces, signaling their lethal intent. Ryland exhaled. Yeah, definitely high-end nightmare fuel. A technician pointed to a tactical interface. They will breach our defensive shields in 7 minutes. We require immediate action. Ryland scanned the glowing projections, noting shield fluctuations and power levels. Your shields are holding for now, but once they drop, you're sitting ducks. He glanced at Kalen. What kind of firepower are we working with? Our primary weapons are offline, Kalen admitted. The Sentinels deployed an electromagnetic pulse in their last attack. Only auxiliary systems remain operational. Ryland groaned. So we're down to flashlights and good intentions. Great. Kalen tilted their head. I do not understand the metaphor. Never mind. Ryland exhaled, rubbing his temples. I've got an idea, but you're probably not going to like it. Kalen folded their arms. Explain. Your ship has a plasma exhaust system, right? For thermal regulation. Yes, Kalen replied, cautious. It expels surplus energy to prevent core instability. Perfect. If we reroute auxiliary power, we can overload the vents and trigger a directed plasma burst. Anything in range gets fried. The technician balked. That could destabilize the ship. Only if we do it wrong, Ryland said with a smirk. And I don't plan on doing it wrong too much. Kalen studied him before nodding. Proceed. Technician, assist him. The technician muttered something unintelligible but complied, pulling up schematics of the plasma system. Ryland cracked his knuckles. Let's do this. As they worked, Ryland couldn't resist keeping the mood light. So, what do you guys do for fun around here? Play naked space chess. The technician gave him an unimpressed look. We prioritize efficiency and cooperation, not frivolous activities. Sounds like a party, Ryland mused, adjusting a control node. You're missing out, though. Nothing builds camaraderie like karaoke. Kalen, despite herself, seemed intrigued. Karaoke? Ryland grinned. Singing badly in front of your friends. It's a human tradition. Builds character. The technician sighed heavily. Humans are exhausting. Ryland winked. You love it. A warning beep from the console cut through their banter. The plasma vents were primed. Ryland's grin faded as he tightened the final connection. All right, Showtime. And yet, here I am, saving your glowing hides, Ryland quipped, stepping back as the console flickered to life. Plasma systems primed. Now we just need to lure those metal nightmares into the blast zone. Kalen gave a sharp nod. I will coordinate with the bridge to adjust our position. As she relayed orders, Ryland stared through the viewport, watching the enemy ships edge closer. His grip tightened on the weapon. No pressure, Ryland. Just the survival of an entire alien crew riding on your improvisation skills. Kalen returned to his side. The Sentinels will intercept in 2 minutes. Are you prepared? Ryland flashed his usual cocky grin. Born ready. Let's send these bots to the scrapyard. The ship lurched sharply as it banked toward the enemy fleet. The Sentinels took the bait, closing in on what appeared to be a vulnerable, damaged vessel. Ryland's heart pounded as the plasma system's power level spiked, warning symbols flashing in unreadable alien script. Come on, he muttered, fingers hovering over the control panel. The enemy's ships were almost in range when the technician suddenly shouted, Now! Ryland slammed his hand onto the activation pad. The ship trembled as an eruption of plasma energy burst from the venting system, engulfing the Sentinels in a searing, white-hot inferno. The viewport flared bright, momentarily blinding, before the light faded to reveal a silent void filled with drifting wreckage. Rylan let out a victorious whoop, punching the air. Boom! Melted and like cheap tin cans. The crew, usually unreadable and composed, broke into rare expressions of relief and exhilaration. Kaylin turned to him, her gaze lingering. Your reckless strategy was defective. Reckless is just another word for genius. Rylan shot back with a smirk. The technician muttered something under their breath, but even they couldn't hide the slightest hint of amusement. As the crew worked to stabilize the ship, Rylan leaned against the console, catching his breath. So, what's next, Overseer? Another crisis? Or do I finally get that coffee break? Kaylin lifted an eyebrow. You are relentless, Rylan Hayes. He winked. And don't you forget it. The aftermath of the plasma burst left the ship in controlled chaos. Rylan leaned against the railing, watching the crew move efficiently, restoring order like a well-oiled machine. For a bunch of shimmering, emotionless aliens, they worked fast, though he still wasn't over the whole no-clothes thing. Kaylin approached him, arms folded. The Sentinels have been eliminated, but the ship remains compromised. Further repairs will be required. Rylan smirked. You just can't get enough of me, huh? She tilted her head in that unsettlingly analytical way of hers. Your confidence borders on arrogance, yet it appears to be a functional trait. I find it intriguing. Yeah, humans have a habit of being amazing, Rylan said, then gestured around. So, what's the next crisis? Or do I get to enjoy 5 minutes without having to save your ship? Kaylin's tone remained neutral. Relaxation is not a priority. Our propulsion system is offline. Until repairs are complete, we remain stranded. Rylan sighed. Stranded? Well, if there's one thing I'm good at, it's getting out of bad situations. Let me take a look. She led him to the engine bay, where a team of technicians was already deep in repairs. Rylan crouched beside the propulsion core, his fingers trailing over the flickering energy conduits. Looks like your plasma trick did more than fry the enemy, he muttered. You've got feedback damage in the relays. Good news? It's fixable. Bad news? It won't be quick. Kaylin's silver eyes narrowed slightly. Estimate the time required. Rylan rubbed his chin. That depends. You got any spare hyperflux converters lying around? The technicians exchanged confused glances. Kaylin raised an eyebrow. Kidding, Rylan said, grinning. But seriously, I'll need a few replacement parts. And maybe a stiff drink. You got space whiskey on this ship? We do not consume intoxicants during crisis situations, Kaylin replied, her tone hinting at mild disapproval. Rylan sighed dramatically. Well, that explains a lot. Nothing sparks creativity like a little buzz. Ignoring him, Kaylin signaled the technicians to gather the necessary components. As they got to work, Rylan settled onto the floor, leaning back against the propulsion core, arms behind his head. You know, Rylan mused, glancing up at Kaylin, for a species with all this advanced tech, you really don't seem to know how to kick back. What do you guys do for fun? Kaylin's silver eyes flickered with curiosity. Fun is a subjective concept. Our leisure activities are designed to enhance cognitive efficiency and physical optimization. Rylan snorted. No card games? No terrible movies? No out-of-tune karaoke nights? That's a crime against joy. Karaoke again? Kaylin asked, the faintest twitch of her lips betraying amusement. Rylan grinned. What can I say? It's the ultimate icebreaker. But you've got a great singing voice. Kaylin regarded him for a moment before responding. You continue to be unexpected, Rylan Hayes. He winked. Stick around, Overseer. I'm just getting warmed up. The technicians returned with the required parts, and Rylan rolled up his sleeves. Well, metaphorically, since the nanotech suit didn't have any, as he got to work. His hands moved quickly, repairing the damaged relays with practiced ease. Kaylin stood nearby, silent, observing him with her usual unreadable expression. "You know," Rylan remarked as he tightened a connection, "for all your talk about efficiency, you've got to admit, humans have a certain charm." Kaylin raised an eyebrow. "Charm? Yeah, we're scrappy, adaptable, and we know how to enjoy ourselves," he said with a smirk. Kaylin studied him for a moment longer before nodding slightly. "Perhaps there is merit in your unorthodox methods." Rylan leaned back, wiping his hands on his shimmering exoskin suit. "See? You're learning. Next thing you know, you'll be cracking jokes and quoting ancient Earth movies." "I find that unlikely," she said, though there was a trace of amusement in her tone. "Hey, never say never," Rylan shot back, standing and stretching. "All right, relays are patched. Should be enough to get us moving again. At least until you do a full repair job." Kaylin inclined her head. "Your assistance has been invaluable, Rylan Hayes. Despite your chaotic methodology, you have proven effective." "High praise from someone who called me arrogant 5 minutes ago," Rylan teased. Her lips twitched again, almost forming a smile. "Perhaps I am adapting to your presence." Rylan chuckled. "Careful, Overseer. If you start liking me, I might decide to stick around." Kaylin met his gaze, and for a brief moment, something unspoken passed between them. Then, just as quickly, she turned away, her voice returning to its usual composed tone. "We will resume full operations shortly. There is still much to be done." Rylan watched her go, a small smirk lingering on his lips. "Yeah, I think I'm growing on you too," he murmured, as the ship's systems hummed back to life. Rylan leaned against the console, watching the stars stretch into streaks of light as they re-entered space. For all the chaos, danger, and occasional cultural confusion, he had to admit, this was the most fun he'd had in years. Maybe being stranded with a bunch of glowing space nudists isn't so bad after all, he said to himself with a grin.